In every profession, there are top performers, outstanding individuals whose caliber of play and career achievements inspire all who love the game. And though these stars strive always for personal excellence, the ultimate goal of every season is the same: to win it all, to be a member of the championship team. That's what being the best is all about. Championship teams are a rare and unique blend, a perfect chemistry of skill, daring, and the ability to come through when the chips are down. Often, a single member of such a team comes to personify the qualities that make the team so great. And that player comes to represent the team's consistency, durability, and outstanding achievement that redefines the game they play and symbolizes the times they live in. But eventually, as all things must, the era the player has so dominated comes to an end. And leaving behind a winning tradition, he retires from the arena. And memories are stirred once more as to how it all began, how it ever came to be.
I remember it was December of 1972. Fred Hertrick and I met with Andy Knowles and Gordon Bell right here in this conference room. Andy was sitting here, Gordon there, and Fred down the table. Fred made the pitch for a new low-cost disk drive that he thought he could build for digital. We called it the RL01. Andy liked it, he gave us the check, and the RL01 was born.
In 1972, Digital's engineering management approved development of a revolutionary new type of storage device, one less expensive and more reliable than any of its time, capable of storing 5 to 10 megabytes of information on a single disk cartridge that users could easily load and remove to carry from one computing site to another. Based on simple but unconventional design concepts never before developed, the RL disk drive would become one of Digital's most popular and profitable products, remaining in active production longer, over 10 years, by sheer customer demand than any other single storage product model in the corporation's history. Dedicated to all those who contributed to the success of the RL01 and 02, and to all members of Digital Storage Systems Organization. This is the story of the RL01-02. The idea of developing a storage device like the RL01 began in the early 70s at the Maynard Mill.
Well, conventional wisdom at the time was that you couldn't build a disk drive that was going to be manufactured for a cost of under $1,000. And Fred said, I think I know how to do it.
Primarily, we were concentrating on low cost as measured in the low number of subassemblies, mechanical subassemblies, and low number of electronic components.
The RL was innovative in two major ways. We tried some technology that had never been tried in the industry for the first time, and organizationally it was very different, having somebody outside the company, Fred, design a major part of the product.
The embedded servo allowed, first of all, to get rid of a lot of the precision, expensive precision, in the disk drive, and it allowed to have each head seek to the center line of the recorded track. With that, we achieved higher reliability at lower cost.
Following successful completion of a feasibility demo in 1973, the design team got the go-ahead to enter full-scale development.
In spring of 1974, we moved down from the foothills above Boulder into this one building above some automotive shops to develop the disk drive that became later the RL01. This top floor of that building became our home for the next 4 years.
Joining Hertrick Associates in Boulder was the first DEC engineering colony to be located outside Maynard. The driving goal of the RL01 was to make it as inexpensive to manufacture and as reliable in operation as possible. Thus, the team evolved the RL's distinctive unibody baseplate, into which major subassemblies could be inserted rather than screwed on for greater stability and with a lot less labor. A prototype of the RL01 was needed before design maturity testing could begin.
The night that we put the first prototype together out at Fred's shop in Boulder was one of those high points that you have in a project.
The first prototype was really built on a cherry wood base plate, which was made according to drawings by a Russian pattern maker in Maynard in the old mill.
We had taken the cherry base plate that was done right here in Mike Obuck's shop over in Building 3 out to Colorado.
That pattern was brought out by Grand Seviers and Dimitrios Litnos one late night flight, and they came in the lab around 10 o'clock.
Fred had designed the actuator and the spindle. We put it all together, and it went together the first try, and that was one of those great moments that you have in a design project.
That DMT test in Boulder was a true stress test. First of all, the DMT lab had to be built, and the builder didn't do a very good job. So the roof was leaking, first of all. The second thing that happened was an antique automotive shop was below. And those old magnetos, when they fired up, they produced noise to the point where the computers went berserk and started to print papers of random data. And then, of course, there were the automotive fumes. There were the lightning storms in Boulder that could get very severe, causing power failures. So in those terms, I think we could do a good job in testing the disk drive in a hostile environment.
There were lots of problems to solve. There were lots of differing ideas and approaches about how to solve the problems, but everyone was committed to seeing it through, and we did.
Though the product failed its first DMT, one by one the flaws in the initial design were found and corrected. And as the final design took shape, plans were laid to prepare to manufacture the RL01. In 1976, property was purchased in Colorado Springs, south of the RL01 design site in Boulder. Construction began on what would be the first digital facility outside of Massachusetts, but it would be months before the first permanent home of the RL01 was ready.
Early in 1976, we came to Fountain, Colorado, into this building to ramp up manufacturing of the RL01. We started with a small group of about 6 and grew to over 200 a year and a half later.
Working around the clock to meet their first revenue ship date scheduled for April 1978, the staff at Fountain grew into a tight-knit team. Standard organizational responsibilities became intermingled in the team's determination to make this critical deadline.
We had the development work of the product itself was done up in Boulder, which is about 100 miles north of here. The head and media engineering was done in Maynard, which is 2,000 miles away. So we were somewhat self-sufficient, or had to be self-sufficient, in trying to get this product going.
The first product, all of us were involved in it. Didn't matter whether you were a manager or engineer or assembler, technician, all of us had our hands on building the first sub-assemblies, rebuilding them, building them up again, just over and over again. So we got it down, wrote the processes, and was able to put a good, smooth process in place.
The good experiences we gained out of the RL01 was starting the product totally in manufacturing and learning as we produced the product, learning some of the mistakes we made.
The teamwork between production, materials folks, quality control, and manufacturing engineering was probably the best I've seen on any new product startup.
Of course, the RL01, which was a cartridge drive, became a market leader almost instantaneously. We tried to gear up for a volume of like 50, 60 units a week, which later on became 100 to 150 a day. So, I mean, it was phenomenal for us. At times it was almost scary because we were not totally prepared to deal with volumes like that.
Following the first revenue ship date, manufacturing personnel began the process of transferring the RL production line to the Rockrimmon Boulevard facility.
By May of 1979, the entire RL team had relocated to this permanent facility. The engineering and manufacturing organizations were together at the same site for the first time. From a location that had once been grazing land for cattle, this rock rimming facility would grow to over 1 million square feet.
Late in 1979, remarkably minor modifications were performed to the original model. Mainly these consisted of a slight alteration of the spindle and tweaking of electronics, pre-designed to double the RL's capacity from 5 megabytes to 10. The RL01 assumed its final form as the RL02. As good reviews about the RL02 spread, orders for both driver and cartridges began to pour in at over 10 times the original estimates. In 1980, the original RL design team was awarded the prestigious IRS 100 award, officially recognizing the RL disk drive as one of the year's 100 most original inventions of any kind in the world.
In 1985, in order to balance workloads, the RL02 was transferred from Colorado Springs to here in Springfield.
The goal of the transfer was ambitious: to move the entire manufacturing operation from teardown in Colorado to turning out product in Massachusetts in 3 weeks without interrupting a single customer order. Located in a complex of buildings originally commissioned by George Washington, Digital's Springfield facility offered sufficient manufacturing capacity due to phasing out of older products to handle the RL02. But even though the product was now in steady state production, the continued high volume and geographic distance between Colorado and Springfield posed potentially troublesome challenges for the exchange.
We knew that transferring a product that was still in high volume was going to be tricky. So in addition to the management and technical personnel, for the first time in Digital's history, direct labor were added to the transfer team.
The direct labor played a significant role in the transferring of the RL02 product to the Springfield facility. They developed their own training plans to train the Springfield direct labor. They spent the time with them one-on-one on the line, handing the process over to them, watching over their shoulders, making sure that the proper procedures were being followed.
Both the giving party and the receiving party have got to work extremely well together, and from my personal experience, I've never dealt with a more effective team, and it was a real pleasure and a real joy to work with them.
And it was bigger than just what we did at work. There were some things that we got involved in from a personal and cultural and religious perspective, where people invited us into their homes.
Being in Colorado was great. It was so different than Springfield. People, the plant itself, and most of all, the product which we were bringing back.
We found out how Digital in different parts of the country all work together. Teamwork. I think that was one of the most valuable things that we learned.
We had a little theme or a little motto: we won't miss a beat. So we went out and we didn't miss a beat.
By 1986, the RL02 had entered its end-of-life phase. Product management personnel began to plan well ahead for retirement of the RL. Besides needing to project demand more volatile than ever, and relocating line personnel and technical support as they were freed up, it was also necessary to continue to generate field replaceable units and spares, all the while trying to migrate loyal users to newer products without disruption. Finally, on May 13, 1988, the last RL02 proceeded through assembly, and at 11:18 a.m., it came down the line. But far from passing into obscurity, the spirit of the RL is alive and well, and active in the hundreds of projects being contributed to by the thousands of individuals that have played their part in the story of the RL.
At the time, I think we were a little intimidated by the disc business. We were doing things the way everybody else had done them. The RL proved we could do it differently, have our own innovations, our own uniqueness, and win.
I believe that Digital has a unique environment to allow these kind of unstructured developments, where so many people, some DEC employees, some not, are working together toward a product like this.
We went out and we were determined to make it a success, the transition as a whole, and that's what we've done, and we're proud of it.
Since the RL01 and 2 is being sold, there were quite a few products that were designed, developed, manufactured, and they died, while the RL02 has still been running and working.
People went above and beyond the call of duty on many occasions to ensure that this total process fit together.
You got to consider that was a champion product. It's just unbelievable how many we were able to produce, and they're still out there.
The beloved champion leaves the field of play, but the destiny of the winning team remains, and others rise to take the hero's place. And the tradition of greatness so brilliantly established lives on in the spirit of all of you who helped make the RL a success. To each of you, Digital offers a salute to a champion.